Hi, my name is Andrew Stadel and welcome to Estimation 180. Thanks again for using Estimation 180 with your students to help them build their number sense and their mathematical reasoning. The purpose of this video is to share the handouts with you and some ideas and tips on how to best use those handouts with your students. The purpose of the handouts is to maximize their student thinking and their mathematical learning. And so what I want to do is I first want to jump in with a handout that will help support you as a teacher, and that's the Estimation 180 Teacher Guide. And then I'm going to follow that up with focusing on handouts that students can use. And one is the Mathematical Reasoning Framework, one is the Daily Log, and the last one is a number line. So let's jump in and get started. So here at Estimation 180, where we're building number sense, I'm going to use days 1 through 5 to help drive the conversation here. And let's say I'm on day 1 and I put up this image right here. So when we go to the Estimation 180 Starter Guide, the Teacher Guide here, I'm giving you a lot of tips on questioning strategies, on how to pose questions back to students to get them thinking. Oftentimes students are curious about things, so there's a section here on curiosity exchanges. And you'll notice that as you move throughout that teacher guide, there's ways to utilize and leverage the visual math landscape that Estimation 180 provides you and students with. There are a lot of elements in there that students will find and they can use in their mathematical thinking. In terms of range building, that's a very important part of estimating because we're making a strategic choice of a number within a reasonable range. So how can you use the thinking of range building in your classroom? So read through that starter guide. I encourage you. There's a lot of little fun tips in there. I also have a podcast episode or two that talks about this teacher guide. So check out the podcast section. So I'm going to talk about curiosity exchanges. The nice thing about Estimation 180 and the visual math landscapes is you could start a day with just the image and have students analyze and make sense of what's happening in the image. In this case, there's me standing. They could say, wow, where is this? Who is this guy? They might even ask the question, gee, how tall is he? And that's the focus question for the day. So when we start talking about our next handout, that's for students, it's going to be the Mathematical Reasoning Framework. So this left side is for students to make sense of the problem. They list everything they know and are curious about that image. If there is something that you've talked about before, they could compare that image to some other image and say, what's the same, what's different? And then maybe there's something that this image reminds them of. So this is a chance for them all to jot down. That's kind of like a brain dump of sorts. And then you can show them the focus question. So you could reveal the focus question for the day about how tall is Mr. Stadel. And now that that's our focus question, when you go back to the Mathematical Reasoning Framework, they can write that in and maybe they have follow-up questions. Okay? This right side here is for them to put their plan together when they are estimating. And they also have a chance to maybe draw something out or do whatever their mathematical thinking might be, some calculations or anything of the sort. Down here is a space for them to write what their actual estimate is and give some thinking behind it, share their mathematical reasoning. And then in the lower part here, in terms of range building, it's important that students have a lower limit. Not like 1 inch for Mr. Stadel's height. We want them to think, be braver than that and think of something, well, Mr. Stadel's height can't be less than 4 feet. It can't be taller than 10 feet. Then we want that thinking down here at the bottom in terms of their range. Remember, an estimate is a strategic choice of a number within a reasonable range. Now, this handout, you might look at it and go, wow, that takes up a lot of time. So maybe you want these estimation tasks to be a little bit quicker, and that's why the daily log comes in. And so you'll notice here there's about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 days that teachers could use with their students. And so on day 1, if it's my height, day 2 could be Mrs. Stadel's height, day 3 could be my son's height, day 4 could be a lamppost's height, and day 5 is my daughter's height. And so you'll notice that that daily log really lends itself for students to keep track of their estimation tasks, and these could be a lot quicker in the sense of how you might facilitate these throughout a week or a series of estimation tasks. You'll notice a lot of the same language, what the estimation task is, a lower limit, their estimate, and their upper limit. And then their reasoning, of course, that's a big part of students sharing their mathematical thinking. And then their reveal, that way they can keep track of what the actual amount or quantity or height or whatever unit of measurement we're using for that estimation task. And then the final handout is the number line. You'll notice this looks very familiar, and the purpose of the number line is for students, again, to make a strategic choice of a number within a reasonable range. So let's say we were focusing on, let's say, my daughter's height. Okay, well, they should already know maybe what my son's height is, and then they can compare. They would say, well, in terms of the number line, the upper limit couldn't be past my son's height. And then they have to think of a lower limit for my daughter's height. It can't be past, let's say, 1 foot or 1.5 feet. Now, since they've put those two numbers as their lower and their upper limits, they would have to place their strategic choice of their estimate, right, on that number line accordingly. And then you've got 4 spaces here to talk about, as a community, what my range is, what the classroom range is, what my estimate is, and maybe what the class average is. And speaking of community, one digital handout that you might be able to help students or give students is this spreadsheet right here. And the power of this spreadsheet is you could go from 1 through 25 students. I have it ready for 40 students if you need it. But students could enter their name and their lower limits, their upper limits, and their actual estimate. And a lot of things down here will be calculated for you as a teacher and as a class. So this is an option if you're helping students remotely or digitally and you still want to have a classroom conversation around estimation tasks. So once again, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for using Estimation 180 with your students to help them build their number sense one day at a time. Take care.